Welcome to the Minimalist Home Podcast, your guide to decluttering your mind and your home with a wee bit of humor. I'm Robyn, mom to 3 teen boys, a registered nurse, and a proud cat parent to 3 wonderful boy cats. What is unique about my journey? Well, 80% of my household, including me, have ADHD. And after diving deep into my brain, I realized that tips alone won't get you that decluttered home that you want. On this podcast, we will explore the hidden corners of thoughts and emotions that hold you back from a happier and healthier life. Because understanding what's going on inside helps us to declutter the outside and live an amazing, peaceful life that fills us up. Welcome to the Minimalist Home Podcast. Well, welcome to the Minimalist Home Podcast. And I am super duper excited to be here with you. My name is Robyn. This is going to be out on all of the podcast platforms, the top, 5 or 10 main ones. This is also going to be on YouTube. Going to try not to move my hands too much because I get comments about that sometimes, but I am such a hand talker and I am so passionate about all of this stuff. So welcome to this podcast, and you are going to love this podcast, I think, because this is going to be a different decluttering podcast in general, different than a lot of other podcasts too, because we're diving into simplifying life, simplifying your home, but in a different way than a lot of other people tackle it, because we're going to be talking about the mind and how that is keeping so much of us stuck in clutter. We're also going to talk about the spirit, and that can be a loaded question for some people, or statement for some people. Now, I am a Christian, but I understand a lot of people come with other spiritual beliefs, and I think that's great. But I do think that for a lot of people, there can be a spiritual component behind why we also have clutter. And we're also going to talk about life. So mindset, spirit, life, all of these things. And my mission in life, basically right now, is to help people to break free from what is holding them back. And quite often that is clutter. Now, I am a registered nurse, as you may have heard in the intro, and I have worked with people when their lives are ending. I've worked with people who are really struggling in their lives. Something about that job has really, really, really made me want to help people to live their very best possible life. And it comes to the fact that I've seen several people pass away and whatever, including even my own life, how I felt like when I was in the emergency department, because I don't work in the emergency department anymore. When I really, really felt just how important my environment was to keep me happy and healthy, and just how a lot of things, one little thing can go wrong and we can just feel like our world is spinning and it's hard to get our bearings. And how can our home support us? How can our lifestyle support us? And that is one of the things I'm so passionate about that we're going to be talking about on this podcast. So why a podcast? Well, let me tell you something. I have been listening to podcasts since 2007. My husband and I moved from Vancouver Island, where we live right now, up to the Queen Charlotte Islands, which is also called Haida Gwaii. That's actually its real name. And we moved up there when I was pregnant with our second kid. And that is when I discovered podcasts. I, ever since then, have just been obsessed with them and listen to them all the time. In fact, I would listen to them when I was nursing my third, and I would fall asleep and then wake up, and it was a whole thing. But also when I was in nursing school, because I went to nursing school when my kids were 5, 3, and 1. So when I was in nursing school, there's a lot of discussions. There's a lot of very high level classes, and often I would put up my hand to speak to the class. And I would always say, I was listening to a podcast, and people always thought it was so funny because not a lot of people were listening to podcasts at the time. But what I love about podcasts is it gives us an opportunity to connect on a deeper level. There are way less time constraints than your typical YouTube video. And this is going on YouTube, which I am very happy about because I actually watch a lot of YouTube myself. I love YouTube and I love making videos. In fact, I just was thinking yesterday, I can't even imagine ever quitting YouTube. I mean, maybe one day I will, but I love the idea of connecting with people on a deeper level in podcasts because we can just I can just blab. I can tell you like crazy things and maybe they're not 100% related to what we're talking about, but it can just be like whatever crazy things pops into my mind. So what can you expect to hear on this podcast? Well, we're going to definitely be unpacking clutter. Like we're going to go deep. We're going to go into the beliefs that keep us stuck. Now, a lot of this I talk about in my membership, but I'm definitely diving into it here. We talk about beliefs, we're talking about habits, we're talking about patterns, we're talking about generational stuff, how we were raised, how that affects us. We're talking about relationships, how, what it's like when your spouse doesn't want to declutter or when they're like wanting to get rid of everything and you're like, whoa, like let's take a minute here. We're going to talk about like in my family when I started decluttering and how they reacted because some of them were a little bit like, what the heck are you doing? And they would always be like, oh, you're just obsessed with minimalism. And I'd be like, I'm not obsessed with minimalism. What I'm obsessed with is having like calm in like this chaotic world and what felt like a chaotic house. So we're going to unpack clutter and the deeper stuff behind it. We're going to unpack the gremlins in our mind. So the mental clutter, the emotional aspect of clutter. I have a quiz where I talk about, so indecision imp, there's motivation Medusa, there's procrastination pixie, and there's nostalgia nymph. And these are things that can keep so much of us stuck. And these are like little gremlins for a lot of us. And how can we overcome these? And not just tips and tricks for how to do with all of these, but although there are some, there are lots, but really these are things that are sabotaging our peace and our happiness. And it's because we're not diving into the things that are deeper and our subconscious and our brain are screaming at us saying something is wrong. You need to fix this. And decluttering it is not going to work because then you're just going to keep trying to fill whatever hole that is. We're also going to talk about spirituality and clutter because spirituality is just an area of life that I think is largely overlooked. And a lot of that is just having quiet time, having peace, whether you are having time with God or you just need time to yourself, whatever that means for you, because that is when you're going to start getting insights into what is missing for yourself and what is needed to really start building a peaceful life. We're also going to touch on ADHD because in this household, as I mentioned, a lot of us have ADHD. There's one kid who does it, that lucky kid, although he has his own unique kind of personality traits. So he fits in just fine. But we're going to dive into how all of that really, really can impact us, how there are so many great things, how to turn it around, how to support us. One of the biggest things is decluttering, but also how do you make decluttering friendly for ADHD people? And all of these things, like the unpacking of what clutter is, like how to go beyond all of that, the gremlins in our mind, the spirituality and clutter and ADHD. How can we create a life that is amazing? Because friends, I'm just really happy to be the one to share with you. This is our amazing one and only life. That's not bad news. That's good news. Do you want to know why? It's because when you have one of something, you can take extra special care of it. And it's much easier for me to get the point across that we are going to do amazing things because you have one and only one life and you are going to make the most of it. Now, on this podcast, we're going to dive deeper into all of that. So stay tuned. I would love it if you could hit subscribe on whichever medium you are watching or listening on to this on or through. You can also leave a rate and review, which would be absolutely wonderful. My intention is to post one of these every Thursday. There will be another one coming out sooner because, I want to create a little bit of momentum. It's also the Christmas season, or just about the Christmas season, which is absolutely one of my favorite seasons. So get ready. There will be a little bit of that. And then, of course, the new year is right around the corner, which, I'm not one of those people who's always like, oh, like new year, new you, all about new year resolutions. But you can't help but just feel a freshness and an excitement as we go forward. So I will bid you all adieu. Thank you so much for being here. I hope something great happens for you today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.